17 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on the Status of Women. Today we are continuing our study on unpaid work, and we're lucky to have with us today from the Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women, Jacqueline Neopole, who is the Executive Director. And we also have from the International Labour Organization, Laura Adati, who is a policy specialist for women's economic empowerment. Now, each of our witnesses will have 5 minutes to make their opening remarks, and then we'll go into our round of questions, where today we are upgrading to use the 30-second warning when people come to the end of their talking time. I will gently and kindly cut you off. And so with that, we will start with Jacqueline. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to contribute to this committee's very important study on women's unpaid labor on behalf of the Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women, CREA-ICREF. CREA-ICREF is a national not-for-profit women's organization founded in 1976. We conduct and support feminist research and analysis on women's social and economic situation in Canada using an intersectional approach in all our work. The issue of women's unpaid labor is not new, obviously. Even going back 50 years to the Royal Commission on the Status of Women, this has been an ongoing issue raised then and over many, many decades by feminists in Canada. Unpaid work takes place in and out of the home and includes all the activities people do to look after each other and manage their household, like caregiving, looking after children, other family and household members, dependent adults, seniors, and other related domestic work, like cooking, cleaning, laundry. This unpaid labor continues also out in the community. So it does not just include women with children, but also senior women provide a significant amount of this unpaid labor as volunteers in their community, and also assisting others with care, like the unpaid care of grandchildren, their spouses, partners, friends. We often look at seniors as needing care, but senior women provide a significant amount of unpaid labor. And women, by and large, provide the bulk of this unpaid labor, which supports the economy and fills the necessary gaps in social services and infrastructure. The problem is the unequal distribution, intensity, the lack of recognition, and the lack of choice. That is what undermines the rights of women. Pre-pandemic, 2015, 25% of women reported caring for children as the main reason for working part-time, compared to 3.3% of men. And now a recent survey that was conducted during the pandemic found that the average mother in Canada spent 13.5 hours per day on childcare in late April and early June 2020. This also includes women who reported being employed full-time. And those were the averages, and that was just the childcare aspect of unpaid care, unpaid labor. When you look at the case of single mothers, especially during the pandemic, you are looking at 24 hours a day for weeks on end with no other options. It was a heavy load before the pandemic. The impacts are clear. On one side, this unpaid care work is so intensive that some women remain out of the paid labor force to be at home, while others move in and out of the paid labor force to accommodate this unpaid labor. Many, many women take jobs that minimize conflict with unpaid responsibilities and work part-time. This has long-term impacts for women throughout their lives and has a significant impact on senior women's pensions and financial security. Women have increased their participation in the paid workforce for decades. Despite this, women continue to provide a disproportionate amount of unpaid labor. There has not been a significant redistribution of this labor. Women also face significant health challenges related to stress and burnout. For many women, in order to participate in the paid workforce, unpaid labor is either done as a second shift or even a third shift for some women. For some women, unpaid labor can be offset by paying others to do it, predominantly other women. Black women, immigrant women, and other racialized women are overrepresented in the paid sector. They're extremely low-paid jobs and very precarious. Valuing unpaid labor requires evaluation of paid care labor. They are interconnected issues. There are also very real financial barriers limiting the ability of women to transfer or offset their unpaid labor. It is a false choice for many women, especially women who have low incomes, to basically contract out this unpaid labor. It has been well documented that the lack of social infrastructure intensifies women's unpaid labor. In the absence of publicly funded options, these are very real financial barriers for women in paying for this labor. Not to mention that in cases where there is insufficient infrastructure, people's lives literally depend on unpaid labor. We see this right now. Many aspects of our social infrastructure are inadequately resourced, and many long-term care residents, for example, relied on family members to provide supplemental unpaid care labor. COVID has perhaps shown more clearly how our society as a whole relies on this labor. In fact, it keeps our society afloat. But while it may be unpaid labor, it comes at a very large cost in the lives of women. It is not for free. The state needs to shoulder its fair share of this responsibility. This can be remedied by ensuring that there are strong universal public services and workers, predominantly women, are well compensated. I guess I'll end there. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. And Laura, we'll go to you now for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much I would like to thank the committee for this opportunity to share with you the finding of our research on this topic, and which we hope really would contribute to transformative policies in Canada as a leading champion for gender equality at home and in foreign policy. You have some slides that I've prepared. Prepared for more than 5 minutes, so I'll try to summarize, really complement the beautiful presentation that Nepal has just shared.
Excuse me, can you just raise your mic a little bit up to your nose again? We're getting some popping. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So we also, the report uses comprehensive definition of care work, including unpaid activities for the household, for the community, and paid work that we define as care employment. So care workers providing care work for pay of profit. And really the innovation of this report is that we try to analyze how unpaid work impacts on gender equalities in the labor market. So unpaid, learning more, measuring unpaid care work tell us about the persisting and stubborn gender inequality at work and how to address them. So the concept, what's really innovative is that the concept of unpaid care work is based on a new international labor standards that really typified unpaid caregiving services and unpaid domestic services for household and family members as a new form of work. So this is for the ILO. Unpaid care work is work and represents a crucial dimension of the world of work. And it matters to measure it because what we measure matters. And it's part of this process that we want to sort of further recognize, value, and make unpaid care work a key part of decision making. The ILO has made estimates of the amount, the extent of unpaid care work, which represents 16.4 billion hours, which is equivalent to 2 billion people working 8 hours per day with non-remuneration. We gave a value to this work, applying a methodologies that would pay these hours to hourly minimum wage. It would represent 9% of GDP globally and 26% of GDP in Canada, with women making up almost 2/3 of the total unpaid hours. We find that there has been some progress in men's contribution to unpaid care work, but still if we look, and actually Canada is performing relatively well compared to Canada for countries for which we have data, and the increase of men's contribution has been improving, but still based on labor force survey data of 2010, there is still a gap of 10% between the provision of unpaid care work, the gender gap in unpaid care work. So there's still efforts that needs to be done there. We also find out that persisting inequality in unpaid care work have direct impact on inequalities in the labor market. We also find out that unpaid care work is the main barrier to women participation in the labor market globally. But also there is an employment penalty for mothers living with young children. And we can really look at the situation in Canada to see that there is still what we call the parent to the employment gap, which is the difference between the employment to population ratios of mothers and fathers, which is still 20 percentage point in 2018, while this gap only accounts for 4 percentage points for women and men who live without young children. And as we have heard already, this penalty results in a motherhood pay penalty, which directly impacts the gender pay gap. There is also leadership penalty, with mothers being underrepresented among managers and leaders. And while we see a consistent fatherhood premium in employment, in wages, and in leadership. So one important result of the process that culminated in 2019 with the adoption of the ILO Centenary Declaration for the Future of Work was a call for investing in the care economy. What does it mean? It means looking at the putting like public and private investment in transformative care policies. This pays off in terms of labor force participation, health.
Thank you, Laura. We're at the end of your time, so we're going to get it on the questions, though. We're going to go into the first round of questions with Alice Wong for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both presenters. And I really, first of all, like to acknowledge the contribution of both your organizations nationally in Canada and internationally. So I have read part of the reports, and I was really impressed from the 500 plus pages which ILO produces, and it really gives a very good overview, evaluation, and also excellent recommendations. So I'm glad that Laura is with us this morning. And also, for the other research work by Jackie's, I believe it's Jackie, right? Miss Nepal, like CRIAW, also highlights the importance of care service and of recognizing the value of unpaid care work. Now, my question is related to productivity. We all talk about, you both talk about the economy. I mean, the impact of unpaid care work in the economy, and also is the caregiving economy as well. The definition of care economy and care sector. So both of you have already said it very clearly. So my question is directed to both of you. What do you think the government should do in order to help these women to balance between their paid work, their unpaid work, and also their future? For example, you did mention about pensions. So the time is yours.
Well, I didn't get to my clear recommendations, but I think the one very significant thing that can be done is to implement a national, universal, publicly funded childcare system. So I think that is one huge thing that can be done, and it would help women in two ways. First, women could access childcare without financial barriers, so they wouldn't have to be making a choice in terms of it would be available. That would, so it wouldn't be a financial barrier for women to access it regardless of their income. It would also help the women working in the childcare sector to have better wages. Right now, they're very precarious workers, underpaid. And so having a national, universal, publicly funded childcare, I think would be a big thing. Childcare Now, an organization in Canada, has a clear plan for that, and actually it's endorsed by over 100 probably women's organizations and other civil society organizations about how to do this and how to ensure that it's barrier free.
Thank you. And what about ILO?
Thank you very
Any
much
recommendation from you?
for the
Please.
question. We, complementing the point, the report, as you will see, puts a lot of emphasis and carries out a sort of macroeconomic simulation to project, to try to estimate, should countries really be serious in meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals in terms of health, education, gender equality, and decent work. So creating decent care jobs. What would it take to to fill all the current care deficits in terms of childcare, healthcare, and the pandemic has been such a revealer, a magnifier of this care deficit. In terms of social work, in terms of long-term care. So we did this exercise. We find out that taking a high road, so meeting really these care needs, creating good jobs, will result by 2030, that is when countries have to sort of meet the sustainable development goals, will result on the creation of millions of jobs. And we estimated it would be like 120 jobs, direct jobs, and complementary almost 150 indirect jobs that will be generated by investing in education, health, and social work. We also have specific data for Canada. So should Canada take a high road to the care economy, this will result on almost 4 million jobs in creation in these sectors. And the good news, when we think about what will take to sort of create all these good jobs in the care economy, the good thing is that we also know that there could be a lot of fiscal recovery from these enormous investments that are needed. But if countries are really serious in filling the care gaps for elderly, for children, this is really what it takes, doubling the investment and achieving the sustainable development goals.
Yeah, my next question is related to the multicultural mosaic of Canada. As we all know that our country has been enriched by people joining us from all over the world. As you can witness from our panel, that, you know, I'm not the panel, I mean our committee, that, you know, very strong women among us, you know, have different cultural backgrounds. So my question is, in what ways, if any?
Unfortunately, Alice, that's your time. We're going
you
now.
might want to comment that later.
We're going now to Ms. Saheed for 6 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to both the witnesses for your important input in this important study which we are doing on unpaid work. My first question is for Ms. Nipol. Thank you for your opening remarks. Your organization has emphasized for a very long time the need to apply an intersectional lens to the challenges facing women in Canada. This is an approach our government has also taken with the adoption of the GBA Plus methodology across the government. So when you apply an intersectional lens to the issues of women unpaid work, are there relevant statistics you can share with this committee? And does the data lead you to recommendations for what governments can do to specifically address the challenges faced by groups such as the minority women, racialized women, and the indigenous women?
Mm.
Hi, thank you for that question. And I do think it's important that we look at this with using an intersectional lens, because when we're looking at women entering the paid workforce and looking at that aspect, we're looking at some women, right? Because some women who can afford to pay for care, but then that's on the backs of other women. And we see with the intersectional data that it is on the backs of some of the most marginalized women in Canada, the most precariously low paid, which are often Black women, racialized women, and immigrant women. And so that's why I think that we need to look at this holistically. So we can't just look at unpaid care, but we need to look at how do we deal with the paid care, because who's shouldering that burden are some of the most marginalized women in Canada. And in fact, women working in the care sector are those women who are doing the double and triple shift. And so they can't afford to pay someone else to take up some of their unpaid labor. And, those are the women working on the front lines, right? Working as personal support workers, working as childcare workers, living, and so that's why I think that if we're going to really look at unpaid care, we need to look at it holistically using an intersectional lens so that we really do relieve this burden for all women.
Any specific recommendations you would have for our government to look into?
Yeah, so another one that I would say is kind of broadly speaks to some of what Laura brought up too, is that I really think that we need to have federal funds transferred to the provinces for health, in addition to childcare. So publicly funded childcare system would actually raise the wages of some of the most marginalized women workers in that sector, which we know are a lot of them are immigrant women, racialized women. So that's one thing. But I think holistically, we need to look at the care economy and who is working in that sector. And we really, really need to invest in it. We can't keep having it be on the backs of these other women who are the most marginalized women, low income, when we know how essential this work is. And so, I think it needs to be for long-term care workers, care for people with disabilities, that whole sector, whether it's in the community or through different institutions. And we have to strengthen our health infrastructure, close the gaps on care, because, as I said, we know that some of the most marginalized women workers are working in the care sector and then cannot even afford to pay for care for their family members. So I wish I had.
No, thank you for that. No,
okay.
So I will go to my next question. As you would know that today our government is hosting the second day of the Canada's Feminist Response and Recovery Summit, bringing together experts and community leaders with lived experiences to examine how the COVID-19 crisis is impacting the lives of the women in Canada. Yesterday, on International Women's Day, we also created a task force on women in the economy to advise the government on a feminist intersectional action plan that addresses issues of gender equality in the wake of this pandemic. What would you advise them to focus on, and what would be your recommendations to the government to ensure that women, including those from often marginalized groups, are not left behind by the recovery, economic recovery?
I really think that it needs to focus on the fact that these gaps existed before COVID. And so while COVID really exposed this in a maybe more of a collective way, there was a collective reckoning with COVID. These were already gaps, really awful gaps in a lot of women's lives before. And so I don't think it's simply a matter of getting back to normal, because normal wasn't working. It wasn't working for many, many women. And we, maybe in our individual lives, it's in different women's lives. But I think we've seen from COVID that there was a huge gap before, there's a huge gap now, and we need to create something better. And that means investing. I really firmly believe it's investing in public services, because we know that this helps women, and it helps diverse women be able to really live the dignified lives that we want in Canada. And I think that this is part of Canada's identity too, is that we feel that we take care of each other. And I think we need to live up to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my time is up.
Exactly. Madame Larouche, 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank both our witnesses for very interesting presentations. Laura and Jacqueline are here representing organizations who do excellent work on this invisible economy, as it were. And I think we can all note that it's International Women's Day yesterday. The COVID has only exacerbated this situation. However, I have several questions. I should begin now. Each of you mentioned the situation of elderly women who are doing a lot of this unpaid work. How is it that they find themselves in such a precarious financial situation? You began explaining it. They often don't have anything set aside for their old age. And how is this? What's your comments on that?
I think why this impacts senior women is because if you've been working part-time or not working in the paid workforce for a lot of those years, you do not have a sufficient pension. So I think even CPP, right? And so when you look at all of these things, OAS, GIS, all of those things, it's very difficult to live off of. And so if you've been out of the paid workforce, performing unpaid care for many decades, the impacts on you as a senior woman are going to be far worse, especially if you're a single senior woman. So that's one thing. I also think the other side of that is that we're seeing the gaps of unpaid care. So a lot of women actually rely on their mothers to take care of their children because they cannot afford to pay for childcare, for example. And so, you have the financial implications on senior women because of a lifetime of being underemployed or unemployed in the paid workforce. But also we're seeing more and more that a lot of working aged women rely on their mothers to provide that unpaid care. I hope that answers.
I may complement to this excellent points because this really gives the diagnostic of the issue. Just to mention that there are countries that have trying to tackle these issues, for instance, by providing pension credits for years of unpaid care work. So trying to reflect this in how pensions are calculated for to recognize, to sort of take those years into account. And this is also provided to men. So to recognize that also men that provide unpaid care, so grandfathers in their latest age, may have those years so to promote men's participation in unpaid care work. Also keeping in mind the importance also to keep non-contributory pensions at a level that is really provides dignity in old age is a really important way also to recognize those that haven't been in the labor force, so they were not able to contribute to social security system, so to have a sort of contributory pension. So keeping in mind the importance of a decent pension system, it's essential. Other countries, for instance, are also shaping their parental leave systems or childcare benefits to recognize the contribution of grandparents. So sometimes this is also possible to transfer leave or childcare benefits to grandfathers or to the effective carer that can be another family member. So if they are the caregivers, as this I mean, it's the reality in many countries, their unpaid work can be recognized.
Oui, parce que comme vous le dites,
Well, yes, you gave us quite a few suggestions on how to help seniors to have an adequate pension, whether it's contributable or not, to recognize all the work that they've done because it is a legitimate part of the economy. I think you were telling us as part of the GDP was a fairly significant number. But we have to monetize that in order to recognize and acknowledge the contribution that's been made to the economy. And of course, to provide a reasonable level of financial support. The provinces that have adapted or adopted some of these measures have to be encouraged to continue doing so. They have recognized the significance of this economic contribution. And both of our witnesses have made ample and eloquent suggestions to that effect.
Oui, tout à fait.
Yes, the objective of our report was in fact to try to establish a methodology that would in fact recognize the value of these services. It's part of our study. The message that we're trying to get across, the main message we would like to articulate, is that the care economy, long-term and immediate needs. I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but your time has elapsed. Ms. Matheson, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you so much. My first question is for you, Ms. Neopol. So you talked very clearly, and I am very, very grateful for you to raise the need for the universal, fully publicly funded, affordable childcare system. It's something that I have been working for, and New Democrats have been talking about for a very, very long time. One of the things that we've heard is that the government, after 23 years, again has promised that national childcare system. And they have provided some funding, so I'll recognize that. However, within organizations like you had mentioned, Childcare Now, all of those stakeholders, experts within that field of childcare have actually said that in order to start back and get to a place of where they can provide adequate childcare, they need 2.5 billion immediately. They need 10 billion over 5 years, and they need a national Child Care Act, a piece of legislation that's put into effect to provide those national standards across the board to create that universal child care system provincially or in every province and fairly. Could you talk about maybe the impacts? The government has given some money, but it hasn't given those full amounts, and what that means to implementing that national childcare system.
I think the challenge is we got to go all in, right? So if we value this and we believe that a national, universal, publicly funded child care system is what we want, we have to go all in and really, put the money there. Because we've got to create the foundation, a strong foundation for this system. It's been a hodgepodge of funding and, market-based approach. There's all sorts of different types of childcare that's going on in Canada in the absence of a strong, universal, publicly funded system. And I think that if we really value this, and we know that we do, I think we have to realize that we've got to really invest in this and view this as an investment in not just women and women's rights, but also our children. And and all children should be able to access childcare, quality, affordable. I would say a publicly funded system would mean that it's not just affordable, but it is free because it's publicly funded. And I think that we've really got to go all in, is how I would put it.
So the lack of this full implementation would mean that we will continue in the path that we are on now in terms of not having what truly women need. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think that if we are still underfunding what we know needs to be funded, it will still be a hodgepodge of, a mishmash of market-based spots. Maybe there will be more subsidized care, right? There could be more spaces that are freed up, but I don't think it will not be the national system that we want.
Okay, thank you so much. And turning to Madam Adati, so Canada, for the last 10 years, the ILO has had the Domestic Workers Convention number 189 on its books. Canada has not ratified that convention, which looks at the unpaid work and realities that you so wonderfully brought to our attention today. Can you talk about maybe governments who have ratified 189, the benefits that women have seen because of that ratification, and why Canada hasn't, or why Canada should ratify 189?
Thank you very much for this question. If we just look at the G7 countries, it's one of the latest publication that we have promoting around International Women's Day, we see that, for instance, Italy and Germany are among those that have ratified this convention in 2013. And there are a number of also countries, around 35 overall in different regions, including low and middle income countries. The benefits are multiple because we have been observing how the fact that countries and legislation don't recognize domestic workers as workers is really the result of the lack of recognition of unpaid care work, work that women is considered as feminine, that the women are by nature able to perform, translates on how we undervalue workers in care jobs, including domestic workers, which also bring in all the issue of intersectionality, migration. So it's really valuing and granting these workers the same rights, which is what the convention is calling for, treating them as other workers, recognizes their work as deserving same labor rights, the same social protection rights, goes hand in hand with recognizing the value of care work, guaranteeing the protection of the most vulnerable care workers, but also given the fact that domestic workers, it's an occupation that is highly feminized. We are recognizing, we are providing decent work to a large majority of vulnerable women. So the benefits are a lot, and it's really up to the countries to take up the challenge that cannot be, can wait no longer.
Very good, and that's your time on that. We're into our second round of questions now, beginning with Ms. Shin for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, ladies, for informing us today on this very important topic. What I keep hearing over and over is the sense that, as the last witness, the statements made just before I came on, is that there's lack of dignity given to these roles that are domestic caregiving roles. So there are cycles created by that. And one of that cycle is especially speaking about some cultures where they would prefer to have a family member care for their children or elders in their family, like a sister, and usually they're women, a sister, a mother, a grandmother. And we know that socioeconomically right now, seniors also live longer and they work later in life too. But what happens in practice is that aunt, for example, who is unemployed at a certain time, pick up the gap and provide caregiving, or a grandmother who it could potentially work, does this as a favor because they love their families. But is there a way that family members who are providing caregiving could be fairly acknowledged and compensated in a creative way? Or what are some ways that those kinds of roles can be duly compensated and recognized, so that we don't repeat the cycle of what the mother, the woman of the family, was doing and just passing it over to some other family member to repeat that cycle? Do you have any thoughts on how that could be dealt with? Anybody?
I was going to say Laura kind of touched on this, and she could probably touch more on other country and how other countries are dealing with this. But I do think pension credits are an important thing. Like, I do think that we should value this as work. You know, I think that there are kind of two things going on here, and I think that we do need to make sure, though, that there are publicly funded options available, because it's hard to know if people are choosing these options sometimes, because in the absence of other choices, and of course we love our kids. I have a son, I love him. So I don't want to, but you know, it's in the absence of choice, it's hard to know if people are choosing this, or if they're choosing it because they do care about the well-being of their children or their grandchildren or their nieces and nephews. And I think, you know, maybe Laura can speak more to some of the pension credits or different ways that this can be valued that has been effective.
Yeah, we have example of this in a number of European countries, and that we document in the report. This is, I think it's it's an important way, but to do so for family members, for grandparents. I also spoke about the transferability of childcare leave and benefits. It can be something that it's a possibility, but I really would like to emphasize Jackie's point on the choice. We know, for instance, in a study in Italy about the consequences of the increase of the minimum pension year that jumped to 67 years suddenly for a number of parents. Caregiving was not an option anymore because they had to work. So and then there was a sort of trade-off between losing years of contribution to meet the new pensionable age and providing the care that their daughters and sons needed. So family were facing this unacceptable choice. So we have to really emphasize the importance of having the choices for families of publicly quality childcare systems and enabling for parents that grandparents that want to do so, and how much, because there is also a matter of providing a few hours per week, but becoming the main caregiver solution for a family can be bothersome for aging parents, the responsibility, the mental load. We heard about that it should not be taken for granted. So we have to also take that into account.
Thank you. I appreciate those responses. So on a similar note, what are some ways that the stigma, the lack of dignity given to these kind of roles be improved culturally?
Well, I think that
Unfortunately, that's the time for that question. Now we're going to go to Ms. Dillon for 5 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I'd like to start with Ms. Adati. You spoke about the sustainable development goals. I found it interesting, but because of a lack of time, you couldn't finish your testimony. Can you please elaborate to the committee how we can best integrate these into our own system to optimize the respect of these goals, and at the same time achieve the goal, which is to ensure equality when it comes to pay for women? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. We try to, in our simulation study, to look at what are the targets that the international communities has established, that each country, so not only low income but also high income countries, should meet by 2030 in terms of coverage of healthcare services, number of teachers in early childhood education, quality of jobs. So you will find a number in our research under the methodology, the way we are trying to integrate these targets and trying to sort of come up with the existing care needs in terms of demographic projection of population, but also in terms of filling the number, for instance, of doctors that would be needed to really meet those sustainable development goals, the teacher-to ratio in schools, in childcare facilities, providing a wage that is adequate with the level of qualification of healthcare workers, aides, childcare aides, but personal workers, assisting living workers. So all these elements will result in a sort of care deficit, care needs that, if you're really serious, I like this all-in call. All countries, including high-income countries, have a responsibility to sort of deliver. Also, if we don't want the COVID crisis that has generated what we have seen over this month, so to prevent this from happening again, we really have to go all in with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. If you could also tell us how other countries and ourselves here in Canada, because we have to go with our own Canadian reality as well. How can we in the future, if God forbid there's another pandemic or another crisis such as this, how can we prevent women from being the most disadvantaged group, the most vulnerable people if it comes to senior women, the LGBTQ community, racialized women? How do we make sure that women don't become as disadvantaged as they are right now with this pandemic? How do we protect them in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was a mention on this task force. I think it would be important that has been created for the COVID pandemic. I think it's important to prioritize the representation of women and of all the groups that have a stake, an important stake in how we want to shape the recovery and the resilience coming after the crisis. A recent study by the UN has shown that the representation of women in this COVID task force has been really marginal. And this really speaks to the importance of incorporating care to decision making. If we want this to matter, it should be really at the heart of big decisions in terms of how to spend recovery packages, how to build a future that really takes the interest and the needs of this population into account. So it starts by making these people voice heard when big decisions are taken. And let's be really aware that austerity doesn't kick in after the pandemic is sort of solved, and we sort of go back to the suffering and the job cuts and reducing working conditions that we have been experiencing over these years.
All right, and now to Madame LaRouche. Madame LaRouche, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Perhaps Laura will want to continue answering my last question. She was talking about a study on long-term care. Maybe she can finish that answer. But also, you talked about the 189 Convention being a tool to recognize invisible work. Perhaps both witnesses could talk about the importance of recognizing that invisible work. In Canada, a motion in 2010 was tabled by a Bloc MP to recognize invisible work. So what does that kind of tool mean? How can it enable us to improve the situation for those who are carrying out that invisible work?
I think we can find some very creative ways of recognizing this invisible work. We've tried through this report to do a sort of a technical exercise, but I mean, there are a lot of countries in Latin America, for example, who have attempted to incorporate this unpaid work into the GDP. They're working at it quite seriously and systematically. Now we're talking about green economy, and we are trying to do the same thing with that. So I think that we have to maintain a certain vigilance. There's a lot of creative and innovative thinking which will influence what will happen in the long term. So the care economy has to be considered in the same light in order to put a bit of wind in the sails of this concept and promote. Well, we're talking about the aging of the population as well, of course, and we have to recognize that perhaps it's aging faster in some countries than others, and that we have to be careful of the upcoming generations who will have to take care of these seniors who are perhaps not in the best of health. Well, in Japan, in Germany, for example, there's an open recognition of the fact, and they have developed a concept of the right to long-term care. There's a right to having adequate child care, but there's also that for long-term care. Quality services for the senior populations. We have to recognize those as rights, and then perhaps we can orient the social support systems to adapt.
2.5 minutes.
Thank you. We just heard, and certainly yesterday was the announcement on the Women's Economic Task Force. But what I've heard continually and today as well from witnesses for this committee, that we know the answers of what needs to happen. Your recommendations have come forward now. So to have yet another study, to put forward another task force, instead of actually putting forward reasonable actions that we already know are in place, what do you think that this will do to both witnesses?
I agree. We've been working, women's organizations in particular have been working on these issues for decades and decades. The answers are here. We know what needs to be done. And I think their women's organizations work with all sorts of women, different demographics of women. A lot of us are supported by our members. So there's an accountability and there's a strength of our collective analysis that women's organizations bring to conversations about economic recovery. I think it's good to come up with concrete actions and have them together as a holistic. Together. So, there are groups that say work on childcare. There are groups that work on women in law. And so I do think we need to bring some of this together and have concrete actions. But I agree, there comes to be a point where studying the same issues for decades and decades can delay action. And I am concerned about that. I am concerned that we get over this COVID and austerity measures are put in and no action has taken place and we're kind of just back to the normal. So I think it's a balance of getting it right, making sure the right people are at the table, which I think women's groups have to be at the table because of the collective knowledge and expertise they bring. And but yeah, let's get it right and let's do it.
I would like to add also the important contribution of the world of work with social partners. The ILO has been working intensively with the Canadian Labour Congress, but also with Canadian employers organizations, and they've been the labor movement pushing for the child care, universal child care, but also fighting gender-based violence in the workplace and fighting the gender pay gap. I think it's really important to really bring all these movements together, and using the pandemic really.
I'm sorry again, that's the end of her time. This is so difficult as the chair. I think we have time for 2 4-minute slots, and so we'll start with Ms. Wong for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I'd like to thank both panelists for shedding so much great light on a lot of very important issues. My question is on the role of business owners or employers. Now, we are now all talking about economic recovery. Hopefully one day, that's probably the most important, because we all wanted to really go back to work, not necessarily working from home. That could be an option now, since this could be the norm. When I visited England some years ago as the Minister for Seniors, I was talking to a group called the Association for Carers. So caring for the carers, and they have been able to really talk to employers. So I would like to hear from both of you, for the international situation as well, how other countries are doing to support, workers who need a good culture in their own working place to support their care work, unpaid care work. Because very often their own colleagues will complain, how come you're getting leave again? Then the job falls on me. So I'd like to have both of you shed light, especially our friend from the ILO.
Thank you very much. There's been a growing business case for care policies, and we've been documenting it as part of our research, but the work that we are doing at the UN. So it's not just a matter of rights, but also it's good for businesses for a number of reasons, preserving talent, retention, and morale, improves business image, etc. We also argue that it's important that also businesses recognizing these benefits also play their role as part of building social security systems that will integrate, care needs as part public of a collective answer to this issue. So we have examples, for instance, from countries in Europe that where also employers and workers with the state contribute in a tripartite way to services, to leave, to childcare, to long-term care services that are provided through social security system. So this is also another way that also can make sure that these services and the leave provision is also calibrated according to workers' ability to pay. So it's really, so it's mean tested, and workers that are high income power, maybe they can contribute more than those that have low income, for whom the service is free, but it's just the same service that is provided through the social security system. So this is also a way to go where also employers can play a part to the big sort of collective answer.
Thank you very much. And my next question is also related to that. We touch a lot on low income women who really are marginalized, but there are also high income or middle income women professionals who actually are also doing professional work. I mean, unpaid caring work for their grandparents, children, because they do care and they wanted to do it. So something else to helping them is technology. Is there any way, any other countries can make use of technology to help these women?
We have examples. Actually, we documented the case of Canada for telecare as one a good practice. So we believe technology can help reducing the drudgery around care work, but care work, like the human side of it, will still remain like the prevalent part.
Very good. All right, and now we're going to Ms. Hutchings for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both for being here today and great discussion. I'm going to ask you both 2 quick questions. You're only going to have a couple of minutes to answer, but remember, for any of the questions that my colleagues have asked, you can send in some written responses after to the clerk. So I'm from a very rural part of Canada. My colleagues hear me say that all the time. I have a riding bigger than Switzerland with 200 beautiful tiny communities. So can you share with us some of the differences between the unpaid work experiences in really rural and remote communities, and as well, the reality of childcare in really rural and remote? And my other question is, we've heard a lot from many groups about Canada should look at some form of guaranteed basic income. What are your recommendations on administering some sort of program like that? Because many of our most vulnerable people don't have permanent housing or don't have a government ID. I would love your thoughts on that. And like I said, you've got a couple of minutes, but please feel free to send in a written response. And thank you again.
So to speak to the differences in urban and rural, yes, I do definitely think that there are significant differences. And I think it is more difficult in some cases in rural areas for different reasons. So you have a lack of services in a lot of rural areas, a lack of social infrastructure. So that's going to make it difficult for women to access any social infrastructure if it's there. There's also issues around transportation and mobility in rural areas. So especially when you intersect that with income. So, it's very difficult to get around in rural areas in the absence of public transit, for example. And so even access services become even that larger challenge. So I do think it needs to be looked at. I think there are also employment issues in a lot of rural and remote communities. And so I think all of those intersecting things make the experience different. With that being said, I think that the same challenges exist for women in rural areas and urban areas in terms of accessing childcare and having those necessary supports for our lives. So I do think that they're different and they may need different investments. they still are part of the same issue. And so even when you're looking at caring for aged seniors in rural remote areas, the logistics of doing that can be more difficult even because of the lack of infrastructure.
And
right?
Laura, over to you for a few minutes, and then please send in some written responses, ladies.
Sure. Maybe I'll speak to the issue of the universal basic income. The ILO has always argued about the social protection system, so to provide this floor for all, like this minimum for all residents in a country, and then to provide a system of benefits that will really is the result of this tripartite discussion from all parties that builds to all the needs, the social needs and social contingencies. I would like to also mention that from a care perspective, we really believe on the combination of money, services and time. So it's really important also from a job generation perspective, the importance of investing on quality public services, but also social infrastructure. We heard how much this is important, especially for rural areas. So thinking about the composition, the design of a package, I would say, of money, services, and time.
Excellent. You know, I just want to thank our witnesses today. You guys have been tremendous, very interesting testimony. So thank you for being with us. And as Goody said, if you want to direct any comments to the clerk, we're happy to hear additional information. For the rest of the committee members, now we're going to suspend while we go into our in-camera part of the meeting. Your link has been sent to you, so I'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.